because I don't expect a camera to stop working after 6 weeks. But I have my receipt, I have the proof of purchase, so I'm not leaving this Sony store. You'll have to close the store and have me sleeping in here. I'm not leaving this store until we get this camera replaced, basically, not fixed. I don't want it fixed. I've made that clear. So, you know, we can decide. You'll have to get the police in if you want to get me out of this store. I'm not leaving until this camera is replaced. So I'm just thinking to myself how lucky it is that we're actually in Fukuoka, Japan, and there is a big Sony dealership here, because if this camera had decided to completely crap itself in Indonesia, in Bali, we'd be in all different levels of pain trying to get this thing sorted. Now I'm hoping having a Sony store here will be a solution for us, and they'll be able to explain what's happened to the camera and get it fixed, or get it, to be honest, get it replaced. It's under 2 months old, but I'm really struggling to see any reason why I'd recommend a camera like this that can stop working in such a short time. And a quick Google has told me this is not uncommon in the FDR X3000. The problem is you need a camera that works not only this month, next month, but this camera should still be working in 2 or 3 years' time if you need to use it. Where is Sony going to stand in a year and 6 months' time when this camera stops working, the focus stops working on the camera? You know, are they just going to say to you, oh well, it's out of warranty? It's troubling. If you've got the FDR X3000 camera, sorry, I wish they'd come up with a proper name for this thing. You know, GoPro, it's nice and easy. FDR X3000, hard to remember. Yeah, if you've got this FDR X3000, I really think you ought to be aware of this, and I don't know if there's anything you can do to sort of prevent this happening in a year and 2 months' time, or if there's anything Sony can do to say, right, if this ever happens to any of these FDR cameras, they will replace them free of charge. They have to. This is clearly a really stupid design fault on behalf of Sony. Your thoughts? Now we're coming up to the Sony store. Bear in mind, it's Sakura season. It's cherry blossom season here in Japan, and we've come here specifically to film the cherry blossom. The cherry blossom season only lasts about a week or 10 days, so I'm hoping they're not going to give me any nonsense about needing to take this thing in and come back to me in sort of like a week's time. It's just, it won't play out. They have to sort this out. There is the Apple Store. Here is the Sony Store. Wind in Fukuoka, it never stops, does it? It never stops blowing since we've been here. We're heading in, wish us luck. I'm here, they're saying to me, they can't warranty. This is just 6 weeks. I'm not having this crap from a company like Sony. Authorized Sony dealer from overseas models. This is the genuine Sony center. It's written here in English, in Korean, Japanese, Russian. We are going to get some service here. I'm not putting up with any of this nonsense. Hello. Are you a manager?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to get somewhere here today, guys. I'm not going to take any nonsense from Sony, so I'll just turn this off. What Sony are basically saying to me is they're saying that this is a Sony camera, but because I bought it in Australia, they won't, in Japan, they won't honor the warranty. What does that mean? Because I don't expect a camera to stop working after 6 weeks. But I have my receipt, I have the proof of purchase, so I'm not leaving this Sony store. You'll have to close the store and have me sleeping in here. I'm not leaving this store until we get this camera replaced, basically, not fixed. I don't want it fixed. I've made that clear. So, you know, we can decide. You'll have to get the police in if you want to get me out of this store. I'm not leaving until this camera is replaced. Just because Sony decide, oh, 6 weeks is long enough, you know, 6 weeks for a camera? No, fly back to Australia, take it to your store in Australia. No, it's not possible. You can't ask me to spend $10,000 to take my camera back to Australia so that they can replace a $500 camera. This camera should work. I'm out of focus now. This camera should work for at least 1 year, maybe 5 years, not 5 weeks. I understand that I can't go to 7-Eleven and take back a packet of chips that don't taste good that I bought in another store. But this is Sony. Right? This is not, if I was over there, over the street at the Apple Store, I can take my Apple computer into any Apple store anywhere in the world and get service. Sony should be the same. I'm in a Sony store here. Sony are upstairs, 2 floors up. They have the office here, they have the managers. So I cannot accept that a 6-week-old camera that I've got the receipt for cannot be replaced because I'm not in the country that I purchased the camera. Now, any of you out there that think otherwise, any of you that think that should be not the case, I'm sorry, I strongly disagree with you. And I think most of us do. If you purchase something from an international company anywhere in the world and that product stops working within a very short period of time, or even within the accepted warranty period, it is the responsibility of that company to replace it. Now, there's some examples where you could argue that point, but from what I understand with this camera, this is not an uncommon problem with the FDR X3000. And that really, really annoys me, because you don't find this out about a camera until after you've purchased it. So it's a little disappointing. Now, I find this interesting because they've asked me, is this an Australian camera or a Japanese model? And does it have a Japanese menu? So I had a look through the menu settings. There is no Japanese menu on mine, so I'm thinking, oh, that's a shame. But then I've looked at this model that is on their stand. This is the same model, exactly the same features. It's also all in English. There is no Japanese menu on here at all. So there is no Japanese or Australian model. I did have problems. Basically, they were saying, oh, well, you know, we can't do anything for you. You have to take it back to Australia. And I said, well, I really dug in and kicked up a stink. I said, no, that's not acceptable. We're not going back to Australia anytime soon, not even in the next year. And when you buy a product from a company like Sony, the warranties are global. So if I buy a laptop in the store I was in then and took it to Australia, it stopped working, Sony would give me a replacement. Certainly if something went wrong that was a manufacturing warranty issue and it went wrong within 6 weeks. So I'm not spending many thousands of dollars flying back to Australia just so I can take a $600 camera into the shop and get it replaced, which they would do 100%. They came back apologetically and said nothing they can do, at which point I dug in deep. I said, well, then you've got me here, you know, make me up a bed because I'm staying until you replace this camera. And I filmed them, and I filmed the whole scenario. I can't share it with you because they did come up with a solution for me. Eventually, after much toing and froing and sort of being very belligerent, they decided that they suggested they would give me a camera to use while I was in Japan, the same camera. So I have that camera here, another FDR X3000. And by the way, I'm still filming on the old camera, so it should be out of focus nicely. I mean, they tested it in there. They could see there was something wrong with it, and they could see the receipt. I had the receipt with me, but they kept saying they wanted a warranty, and then they would be able to replace it. They also said that it's not a Japanese. Does it have Japanese menu on it? And I went over to this model, which was on the counter in the store, and I flicked through it and I said, this hasn't got a Japanese menu. It's got no Japanese menu within the system. It's got no Japanese writing on it. So they backed down on that. That van is... That truck is making that noise. I think it's just telling you that it's indicating to go left. I think that's what it is, Michelle. Almost certainly. So where was I? They were extremely apologetic, but I still think, you know, Sony, you've got to step up and take responsibility. There's clearly a problem with this camera. I've seen now, I've had it for 6 weeks, now I've got a problem with it. I've seen a lot of people complaining they've got the same problem. Apparently there is some glue inside the lens housing that gets brittle, and then if it gets knocked or bumped, it's an action camera, it's going to get knocked and bumped, the lens can come loose. Now the solution is for you to go into crack the camera open up the body and start trying to fix it yourself. That's not acceptable. That's not acceptable for any camera, in my opinion. And certainly it isn't acceptable to start having to do on a 6-week, 7-week-old camera. So yeah, I love this camera, much as it's out of focus. Sorry about that, everybody. I love this camera. It's been doing an absolute whiz for us. We've been so happy with it. But at the same time now, my whole confidence has gone in Sony cameras. Just lovely smell. We're outside a Japanese Owens. Okay, so that's the buses. I mean, we're still going to follow this up. We're going to have to contact Sony. But like I say, if you've got a product that you've purchased that's meant to be an action camera and whoops, getting in the wind again. It's meant to be an action camera and it goes wrong within 6 weeks. What does that say? How does that make you feel? You share your opinions with me. If you've got this FDR X3000 also, let me know how you feel about it, because before this happened, this was my favourite little camera of all times. It's given me heaps of confidence to get out with a very small camera and do filming. And since it happened a couple of days ago, I don't know how much of our filming we'll have lost from the beautiful sakura trees here in Japan. I don't know how much of the filming we'll have lost because I haven't edited everything we filmed in the last week. And Sony, if you get a chance to watch this, anyone from Sony, reach out to me and let me know what you think about this video, because you've got to actually step up and admit that there's something wrong with the design and maybe do a recall on the camera, or at least have some sort of policy where if that happens to anybody's FDR X3000, you will replace it without any quibbles. It's not their fault, it's your fault. So step up to the plate, sort it out. And thank you very much to the staff here in Fukuoka. I understand your... Well, no, I don't understand. I disagree with your policy, but I understand, and I thank you for coming up with a solution for us. Thank you very much. In the meantime, if you've enjoyed this little sort of ranting, rambling video, share the love, share this video with your friends and anybody out there that's got an FDR X3000, and tell Sony to come up with names for cameras like GoPro do that just make sense. Anyway, love to you all. Take care. See you next time. Be good.